Now I have to do this the other way around. Excellent. Okay. Orientation is locked. Why is orientation locked? What button do I press for that? Off. Ah, okay, right. Right, this is very... Right, let's hope that it works. Okay. Good evening and welcome to this year's memorial lecture in memory of my father. You've probably all seen the publicity material, so I'm not going to go into great detail about our lecturer's credentials. I'll just say that I really don't know what to call him. We have these debates in shul, he sits next to me in shul, about whether it's Rabbi Professor Doctor or Doctor Professor Rabbi, or we'll just call him Dov. You know, I think the more distinguished a person is, the less titles they need. Suffice it to say that we've always found him a very interesting teacher, and he has an advantage that some of the previous speakers that we've had in the past haven't had, and that is he actually knew my father, maybe not that well, but he used to see him from time to time, and we used to talk about things together in shul, not in davening.
He wouldn't let. I tried. He wouldn't let.
I'm a father than my dad.
That's what I meant.
He's very, very fussy about talking shul. Shimon himself. Once again, I'd like to thank Nitsa and Robin for their amazing work. The truth is that I often feel I really ought to hop on a plane to one of your other events, because the emails I get are so enticing, and it just, you know, you're doing fabulous things, and just keep it up. So I don't think I'm going to add any more. This community has been blessed with a new rabbi, who I think would like to just say a few little words to introduce things before we get moving.
Just on behalf of the shul, welcome to everybody for this lecture. We're looking forward to the lecture. Thank you to Spiro Art for partnering with the shul on multiple projects during the year. It's an honor to be a host. We look forward, under my leadership, to many exciting events alongside Spiro Art. And thank you to the Cohens for having this Sam Cohen Memorial Lecture, and Sham Zal Haben and Aliyah. We wish you only strength and wish everybody a good Gebench Jar. And thank you.
Good evening. I want to say a few words before we get into this evening's shir. It really is a great zchus and privilege for me to be able to speak this evening. I have to be honest, the Ben-Gershons and Frimmers have been friends for approximately 30 years. I was doing the math. It's really mind-boggling. And we're friends with the Cohens for even longer than that. And nonetheless, despite knowing the children and having had the privilege of meeting and speaking with Dr. Cohen, I never fully appreciated the multi-dimensional character of Dr. Sam Cohen until Michal and I had the opportunity to sit in his living room one evening in preparation for this lecture, and I asked him, I said, Michal, tell me about your father. I have to tell you that I came home, I shared with my wife, Shelley, that was simply a fascinating evening. And this was a person of rich personality, a person of content. And unfortunately, we meet people and we don't always fully appreciate the depth of the people who we are speaking with and who we have just met. He was, of course, an outstanding physician, a psychiatrist, having developed an entirely new field of psychology, which today is known as liaison psychiatry. One of the major elements of Dr. Cohen personally and the field of liaison psychiatry, is that it places a strong emphasis on the full history of the case on two levels. Obviously, on the level of the patient, getting the full history of the patient. But Dr. Cohen did not stop there. He wanted a full understanding of the entire literature on this particular matter. And that includes going back to the geniuses of the past, including Maimonides, the medical writings of Maimonides. Because the geniuses of the past, both medically and empirically, had the insight to see the aspects of human behavior which today we see once again and have to relate to in a very different context, but at the same time, the same dimensions and behavioral patterns. But that's not the main reason why we're here. The main reason why we're here this evening is because of Dr. Cohen's commitment and contribution to Jewish education. He literally was obsessed. He had a brand for Jewish education. First and foremost for himself. The emphasis that he placed on educating himself in areas that go beyond his professional interests. Secondly, the education of his children. That was paramount there. That his children should be well-rounded and well-educated, both Jewishly and generally. But it didn't stop there either. He had this brand in order to educate the children of the entire community. And I emphasize the children because Dr. Cohen, perhaps because he was a psychiatrist, understood how important it was to plant a seed at a very young age. In fact, the school which he helped establish and steward is still found in this very building to this very day. He believed that a Jew always needed to grow spiritually and intellectually. Each day, every day. Sometimes more, sometimes less. But every day you had to learn something new. And that's why he was a keen admirer and supporter of our host tonight, the Spirals of Art, established by Nitza and Robin Spiro to bring Jewish culture and heritage to Jews of all walks of life. And finally, I will note that Dr. Cohen and his lovely wife, Vivian, shared an involvement in the Jewish Marriage Council, and as a lawyer and professor of family law, I can tell you how needed, how crucial, how important this type of work is. By the way, I would also highly recommend the Cincino volume on Jewish marriage, which I personally own a copy, and especially the Cohen chapter which appears in that volume. Unfortunately, Vivian is not here to join us this evening. She's in Eretz Yisrael and will be there for the Yom Tovim. But nonetheless, she actively participated and partnered with her husband in all aspects of his endeavors and achievements in the area of Jewish education as well as in the Jewish Marriage Council. In light of the professional and personal elements regarding Dr. Sam Cohen's interest, which I mentioned, I decided to speak on a topic which I personally find very, very fascinating, but it's a topic that weaves together so many of these elements of Dr. Cohen's personal interests. The topic I'll discuss tonight is the right of self-defense and abortion. Seemingly two unrelated issues, but as you will see, they are very much integrally intertwined and shed light one upon the other. And the issue that I want to present to you is, why does one have a right of self-defense? Why does one have a right to kill and take someone else's life in order to save his own life? We instinctively feel that we have such a right, so much so that I would not be surprised if many here never really thought about why indeed they have such an existential right. But as we go through the shir, and I want to emphasize this is a shir, this is not a lecture. I'm a law professor. I'm not a rabbi. I'm not going to give you a sermon. This is not a drasha, with all due respects to your esteemed rabbi. I'm here to teach. My own Rebbe, Rabbi Yoshe Ber Soloveitchik of blessed memory, would always say, I'm a Pasha da Melamed. That for him was the highest achievement, to be a teacher. And that's what I would like to do tonight, to teach. I want your involvement. And I have to tell you, it's much easier to get Americans involved than to get Brits involved. But I'm inviting you, I'm begging you, please get involved in the educational process. It makes it so much more exciting. But what I want to do tonight, as I said, is to lay out the problem so that we understand what's the issue. Why should there even be a question that one has a right of self-defense? Once I've demonstrated to you that there is a problem, then we'll be able to move on to resolve the problem. So by way of introduction, am I causing problems here? No. Okay. So by way of introduction, I would like to begin with the basic biblical sources that deal with the halacha that we all know as pikuach nefesh, saving one's life. That one has a right to transgress almost, and I emphasize almost all commandments in the Torah in order to preserve life. The concept of preservation of life, the concept of pikuach nefesh, which takes precedence over almost all other mitzvah that we know. The classic example being Chilul Shabbos. One can violate the Shabbos in order to save a person's life. Why? Let's take a look at source number 1. I'm going to read it in Hebrew, but under every source in Hebrew, I've also provided an English translation. Vayedaber Hashem el Moshe lemor. I'm going to give my simultaneous translation, which is probably not as precise as the official English translation below, but it'll simply make things easier for me. Vayedaber Hashem el Moshe lemor. And Hashem spoke to Moses, saying, Daber b'nei Yisrael v'amalta aleim, ani Hashem Elokeichem. Speak unto the children of Israel and say to them, I am the Lord your God. K'maaseh eretz Mitzrayim asher yeshaftem bo lo tasu. The ways of the land of Egypt where you lived, lo tasu. Do not follow them. Uk'maaseh eretz Canaan asher ani mevii etchem shama, lo tasu. And the ways of the land of Canaan, where I'm taking you to, also do not follow their ways. I'm sorry. And their laws do not follow. So we have ways and we have laws. But my laws you should follow. And my statutes you shall obey. Lalechet behem, to follow them. Ani Hashem Elokeichem. I am the Lord your God. Ushmatem et chukotai v'et mishpatai asher yaseh otam adam v'chai behem ani Hashem. And you shall observe my statutes and my laws, which you shall obey, so that you can live by them. I am the Lord. What is the theme of this section? What is the theme of this section? If I asked you, now remember, by the way, the rabbis never went to university, they never went to Cambridge or Oxford, they never took a course called Bible as Literature. For them, Bible was law. Torah is law. So when they read the verses of the Torah, that was like any law student. Those are the verses, those are the statutes. Those are the sections of the statute. And they read it as statutes. So I want to ask you, what is the theme of this section? What do you think?
Carry out my laws and safeguard my decrees, to follow them.
Correct. Now, but that appears so many times in the Torah, I think it would be difficult to count. But what's special about this section? What was the Torah telling us here that it does not tell us anywhere else, that the Torah felt that it was important to repeat once again that you're supposed to listen to my mitzvah? I'm sorry?
A man will live by doing this.
But that's not the theme of the section. You're right, I'll get back to you, but that's not the theme of the section. Not to do what other people around you are doing. Why was that important to tell the Jewish people in the desert? You're absolutely right. Let's continue. Why was it? Remember, you're speaking to the Jews who are in the desert. Why was it so important to tell them that?
To justify why they've been taken out of Egypt.
Well, I don't know if it's necessary to justify, but continue the thought.
To make them feel special and
I don't know if it, again,
they're different.
Again, I told you, I'm not giving the drasha now. The rabbi would be able to weave a wonderful sermon from what you just said. But as I said, I'm a law professor. I want to stick to the law.
You have to learn something different, something new, which is not what other people do.
Okay, let me reformulate that. Your answer is correct. I simply want to reformulate that. The Jews are coming out of Egypt. They received the Torah. What is the basic source of law in all legal systems? Certainly in all common law legal systems. What is the basic source of law?
Precedent.
Sorry? No, I'm talking about in general.
Precedent.
Precedent, custom. Custom and usage. Custom and usage is the basic source of all law. So God comes along, gave the Ten Commandments, gave the Torah. Now the Jews have to come along and they have to interpret these laws. So number one, they have to interpret them. Number two, the question is, what happens if I can't find an exact section in the Torah, an exact pasuk in the Torah to tell me what to do? In both of these cases, what will be the natural reaction of a judge, a rabbi who has to come and interpret the law? Or he's going to have to rule on something new. Where is he going to turn? He's going to turn to custom and usage. Wait, we'll get to the precedent in a moment. Custom and usage. So now we're going to get to precedent. The custom and usage. Which custom and usage is he going to look to? What's the? These are Jews who just came from where? Egypt. They're in the desert. They haven't been in the desert so long. So if they're going to look for custom and usage, they're going to look for the custom and usage of Egypt. So what does the Torah come along and say? Kamaseh, the custom, the ways of Eretz Mitzrayim asher yishaftem bo lo tasu. The ways of Egypt where you settled no longer valid. So what's the next logical source? If it's not going to be the custom and usage of Egypt, what's your next logical source? Canaan, where you're going to. The Torah comes along and says, not that either. Not only not the custom and uses, but certainly not their statutes. So what are you supposed to do? Only my laws. Only my statutes. And if we're going to deal with custom and usage, it's going to be our custom and usage. That's what the Torah was telling us here. Very important for any legal system. What are the legitimate sources of law? Now I want to move on to the point that you raised. There's a redundant verse here. There is a redundant pasuk here. There are two psukim that say the same thing. What psukim are they? The last two. Why do we repeat? What's the function of repetition? Emphasis. I just went through eye surgery. That's what I have here. So, I had to detach right now. Thank God that thing's okay. All right. But as a result of that, I sit in shul, or I stand at shul, and I'm not looking at the Chumash. I'm listening to the Kriya. I'm listening to the Torah reading. I highly recommend it. It's a whole new experience. And it takes you back to the way the Jews of old, they learned Torah, and they heard the Torah. It was an oral experience, even though they were reading the text. But the community listened and heard. It's a different experience. And when you hear repetition, that's for emphasis. That's why a mother will say to the child, go very, very slowly. Now tell me what very, very adds to very. Be very, very careful. You can say it. Be very careful. So why do you say very, very? Emphasis. All right? So that's obvious. Now I'm going to give you a tricky one. What happens if you want to emphasize something within the emphasis? So today, it's very easy. Today, with computers, with fonts, with bold, with underline, so you can bold, and within the bold section, you can underline or italics. So we can emphasize within the emphasis. But what did they do before they had computers? I'm sorry? No, so that's, repetition is the first emphasis.
The last thing you say.
What?
The last thing you say.
No, but there's this, but what was done textually within the emphasis in order to highlight something? I'm sorry? The trump, but the trump came in much later.
Repeat and change.
Repeat is
Modified.
exactly. Repetition is the first emphasis, and then you modify, you change. So what happened in the second pasuk? In the second pasuk, there was a modification that didn't appear in the first pasuk. Now we get, sir, what was the modification in the second pasuk that did not appear in the first pasuk, which is what you indicated earlier? V'chai b'hem. And you should live by them, so that you shall live by them. What does that mean? What was the Torah saying? The Torah was giving what we call in law a condition precedent. The Torah was saying, in order to fulfill the mitzvahs, you have to be able to live. But if by doing the mitzvah, you're going to die, you're absolved from the mitzvah. So if by observing Shabbos, I'm not going to be able to live, I can violate the Shabbos. Now this is fundamental to the entire observance of the mitzvah. Let me ask you a huge question. Someone's starving. And the only thing he has is a treif piece of meat. Can he eat the treif piece of meat?
Yes.
Yes. Right? That preservation of life. That's pikuach nefesh. Do you make a bracha on the treif piece of meat? Do you say shachakol niyeh b'varo before I eat that luscious piece of treif steak?
Yes,
You say yes. Why?
because of the verse.
Because of the verse. In other words, you're right, according to one view, 1 second, and the answer is because it's not treif meat. For me, that meat is kosher meat. I'm allowed to eat it. Not only am I allowed to eat it, I'm obligated to eat it to save my life. So of course I make a bracha. The famed Rabbi Leo Kramer, the Cohen of Vilna, rules in accordance with your view. The dominant view, however, is the fact that we don't look at the individual case, we look at the general principle, and since for everybody else it's still treif, we don't make a bracha. But the Vilna Gaon was of your opinion, that you do make a bracha. Fascinating. But this is a great example of the fact that this is fundamental to the observance of the mitzvah. The fact that I should be able to sustain life, preserve life. Now I kept emphasizing the fact that you can transgress almost any mitzvah. The Gemara, which is source number 2, debates the exceptions. How many exceptions are there to the principle of equality? There's a debate, and the conclusion is that there are three.
How much money is that?
There are three exceptions. What are the three exceptions?
Idolatry.
Idolatry, illegal, not only incest, illegal sexual relations, and homicide. Homicide. Okay, these are the three. How do you know idolatry? What's the biblical source? The fact that you have to give up your life, and rather than to worship an idol, we say it twice a day. What? Go ahead. V'chol levavcha, v'chol nafshecha, v'chol meyodecha. With all your heart, with all your being, and all your might. Now, you have to understand, nefesh in the Tanakh does not mean soul. That's a medieval usage of the term. In biblical Hebrew, nefesh means being, literally, my body. Et ha-nefesh asher asa b'charan. The people that Abraham purchased or converted in Haran. Nefesh means being. So when the Torah says that you have to love your God with all your being, this is exactly what it means. That even if you have to give up your being in order to demonstrate your love for God. So that's idolatry. Illicit sexual relations. The Gemara learns the illegal sexual relations from murder. We won't go through, I bring the source here, but we're not going to go through it. But I just want to demonstrate the fundamental deep psychological understanding that rape and murder as being violations of a person's being is already understood by Chazal and the Torah. So the Gemara then says, well, let's read source number 2. Amar Rabbi Yochanan Mishum Rabbi Shimon ben Yotzadok. Rabbi Yochanan says in the name of Rabbi Shimon ben Yotzadok. Rabbi Yochanan, the great Palestinian Amora of the end of the first, beginning of the second generation of Amoraim in Israel, said in the name of Rabbi Shimon ben Yotzadok. There's a generation gap here. In other words, Rabbi Yochanan did not study with Rabbi Shimon ben Yotzadok, who was 2 generations ahead of him. That's why he used the term Mishum, because he heard the tradition from Rabbi Shimon ben Yotzadok. Nimnu v'gamru b'aliyah b'nitza shebulud. The Sanhedrin met in the house of a gentleman by the name of Nitzeh, who lived in Lud. Why did the Sanhedrin have to meet in the attic of some secret hideaway in Lud? When was this meeting? When did this gathering take place? Under the Romans. During the Roman period, this question was not a theoretical question. It was a very realistic question, an existential question. And the Sanhedrin had to decide, when do people have to forfeit their lives, and when do they not need to forfeit their lives? And as I told you, it was a matter of debate. And under the Roman persecutions, the Jews needed a final, definitive ruling. But the Sanhedrin couldn't meet. If the Romans knew the fact that the Sanhedrin would meet, the Romans would come and slaughter all of them. So they did it in hiding. They did it in the attic, on the Aliyah, in the attic of this house of this gentleman Nitzeh. You can imagine the fact that he was down below keeping watch while they were up in the attic deliberating in a city in Lud, outside of Jerusalem. Nimnu v'gamru. They took a vote. There wasn't consensus. They took a vote. And what was their conclusion? Kol averot shebetorah in mamrim la'adam avov al te'areg yavov al yereg. Chutz me'avodat kochavim v'gilui arayot u'shfichut damim. On all of the mitzvahs of the Torah, if someone says to you, perform the Avera or I will kill you, you perform the Avera. Except the three that we mentioned. Avodah Zarah, idolatry, Gilu Arayot, illicit sexual relations, Ushfichut Damim, and homicide. By the way, if you haven't read Milton Steinberg's book As a Driven Leaf, I highly, highly recommend it. Fabulous work, it's historical fiction, but well rooted in rabbinic sources of the time. And he has a section where he describes the debate and this discussion, Milton Steinberg's As a Driven Leaf. So as I indicated just a moment ago, we know the source for idolatry, illicit sexual relations. The Talmud derives from the analogy homicide. So the big question is, what's the source for homicide? And that's source number 3. Yotzeach gufa menala, and you tell me the fact that you learned illicit sexual relations. From homicide, how do I know homicide? And the Gemara answers, how do you know? Svarahu. Legal logic. It's amazing. Legal logic. I have to sacrifice my life in order not to kill someone else, based not on a biblical source, but based on legal logic. Now the Talmud is going to present us with a precedent which embodies the legal logic. And first it embodies the legal logic as well as provide us with a precedent. A man came before the Amora, third generation Amora, the Babylonian Amora, Rava, Va'amale, and he said to Rava, Amali Mare Dura, the governor, said to me, Zil Katya Leplanya, go kill so-and-so, V'ila, and if you don't kill him, Katlina Mach, I'm going to kill you. What should I do, Rava? And Rava said, Amalei Rava, Liktoch v'lo tiktoch. You should die, but you should not kill. So now first we have the precedent, and now we have the legal logic. Mi yema di dama di dach sumach tvei, dilma dama da hu gava sumach tvei. Who says the fact that your blood is redder, maybe the other person's blood is redder? Now I want to ask you, who cares what color my blood is? Whether it's red, purple, gray, orange. Why is that at all relevant? What was Rava's answer?
2 lives of equal worth.
The two are, and therefore,
Therefore, you cannot preserve yours at the expense of the other.
why? What does equal weight have to do with anything?
Because they are equal weight, so you don't have the right.
You're right, I'm trying to prod you on further. Why not? Why does equal weight have to do, why is that relevant?
Because there's no way of deciding, so you therefore cannot absolve yourself of...
Why can't I kill him? Why can't I kill him? What's preventing me from killing him?
He's not a threat to you.
What?
He's not a threat to you. So
I'm not.
stuff as well.
Believe me, when my life is at stake, I don't care about playing fair. Keep going, you're on the right track. What's preventing me from killing him?
You don't know which life may be more precious.
Again, but why is that relevant? We're missing one element. I'm trying to get you to one additional element. There were 90% there. What prevents me from killing the other person?
I would be committing murder.
Oh! Thou shalt not murder. The Torah says thou shalt not murder. So let's understand what the context is of this discussion. Very nice. The purpose of the Chai, that very first source, is to eliminate what? To eliminate the transgression, to eliminate the prohibition. The Torah says, don't desecrate the Sabbath. Along comes the Chai and says, you can desecrate the Sabbath. The Torah says, do not eat treif. The Chai comes along and says, you can eat treif. You may even have to make a bracha. The Torah says, thou shalt not murder. Along comes the Chai and says, what?
Thou shalt not murder.
Oh, okay. Now let's think about it, okay? Reuben is running after Shimon. Not running. I'm running ahead of myself. Reuben comes to Shimon, puts a gun to Shimon's head and says, go ahead and kill Levi, or else I'm going to kill you. And in our case, Shimon goes ahead and he kills Levi. And the police come along, arrest Shimon, bring him before the court, and the court's going to say, how do you plead? And what's he going to say? He's going to say, not guilty. Because I was under duress. I was under, right? And the court's going to say, on what basis? And he's going to say, v'chai, right? I was saving my own life. And what's the prosecution going to say?
Doesn't agree with the intent. Well, they dispute it.
Now you're bringing in another element which is valid but not relevant to our discussion right now.
It's not optional.
I'm sorry?
Lot yourself is not optional. It's lot yourself.
Okay. Now let's. The prosecution says that the B'chai Behem defense is not relevant to this case. It's not optional in this case. Why not? Now let's.
Because it's not you who, the other person also behind him.
Okay, I don't like that formulation that you're running. In other words, let's think about it. What is the purpose of B'chai Behem? What did we say all along in our entire discussion? What is the purpose of B'chai Behem? To preserve life. Right? Does the Torah say that's to preserve your life? Can I drive my wife to the hospital on Shabbos when she's giving birth? Why? Why can I be Mechalel Shabbos? She's giving birth. I'm not giving birth. I never gave birth. I never will give birth.
Is there anyone?
Because V'chai says to preserve life. So in order to preserve life, I can be Machal Shabbos. So the argument would be, in order to preserve life, I'm allowed to kill? That doesn't make sense. Why not? Because in this case, you're not preserving life. What's the real question? What's the real question? It's not whether you're preserving life, because someone's going to die. So what's the real question?
Who should it be?
Who should it be? And to that question, Rava answered, what did Rava answer? Now we get to your point. Rava answered that in the eyes of the law, everyone's equal. You can't say it should be me as opposed to, it should be you as opposed to me, because the Torah doesn't make those type of evaluations. In the eyes of the law, all men are equal. And therefore the Torah is here to preserve life. Doesn't say your life or someone else's life. Consequently, the V'chai defense fails. It's no longer optional to use your formulation. What am I left with? Lo tetzach, thou shalt not murder. And therefore, I have to give up my life. Because I have no defense. The Torah says, you can't murder, you can't murder. Unless you have a reason, unless you have a defense. Here I don't have a defense. Okay? Is it clear? All right. So now that we understand the fundamental mechanics of one life for another, now I ask you the basic question. We finally got to the top. Why can I kill in light of self-defense? And we can, and that's source number 4. We won't read it, it's obvious, and you can read the English translation. But Jewish law, like most legal systems, allows for the right of self-defense. Not only that, Jewish law always allowed for the defense of others. In Anglo-American law, that wasn't the case. In England, for example, you could only defend others with whom you had a special relationship. Husband, wife, parent, child, ship's captain with his crew, until they changed the law in the 1970s in a case called Regina versus Cunningham. But before Regina versus Cunningham, only people with a special relationship. Israel, because we adopted the British tradition on this, also did not allow third-party intervention until finally Israel also changed its law because of Jewish law. Because the Israeli Supreme Court, Justice Menachem Elon says, it makes absolutely no sense. The fact that England already changed in Regina versus Cunningham. We, in our Jewish legal tradition, always allowed third-party intervention, and we're stuck with old British law. So first he did some very creative judicial gymnastics, acquitted the defendants in the case, and then the Knesset came and changed the law. In any case, why do I have a right to kill in self-defense? It's a life versus a life. We just saw that unless you have a defense of the Highland or something similar, you have no right to kill one life in order to save another life. So why do I have a right to kill in self-defense? What is it about self-defense that makes it special?
Rambam said your blood is not redder.
I'm sorry?
In the extract before, Rambam said that your blood is not redder
Right.
blood. But in the case of self-defense, presumably your blood is redder. than
Why?
his, because
Why?
he is presumably doing something which is against law, illegalness.
They've partially forfeited their right to life.
I'm sorry?
They've in some sense forfeited their right to life.
Why? The right, but you're begging the question, why?
Because he's going to murder you.
Okay, we got two answers here. And I'm going to show you that we have two answers. And we're going to examine the two answers. Your name, sir?
Bernard.
I'm sorry?
Bernard.
Bernard says because, I did with an American accent, right? Said because of illegality. And your name, sir?
John.
John. John placed the emphasis on the aggression, on the act. Okay? I want to examine those two answers. Because both answers appear in the literature. Not only in the secular legal literature, but the halachic legal literature. Let's start with John's answer. The action. The act of aggression. Right? Reuben is running after Shimon in order to kill Shimon. Can Shimon turn around and kill Reuben in self-defense, according to your analysis, John?
If it's in self-defense, yes.
Yes, okay. The policeman sees Reuben running after Shimon. The policeman comes along, pulls his revolver, and is going to kill Reuben in order to save Shimon. Reuben, out of the corner of his eye, sees the policeman, whips around, shoots the policeman dead, and gets arrested, comes before the court, and the court asks Reuben, how do you plead on the charge of killing a policeman? And what is he going to say, John?
Not acceptable.
Is he guilty or not guilty?
He's guilty.
But according to your analysis,
According to my analysis, one would have to add something new about the status of the
so therefore you agree, well, you're backing off now, you're backtracking. In other words, aggression, the action alone is not sufficient, right? You have to admit that the action alone is not sufficient because it does not explain why he's not allowed to kill the policeman who's coming to save Shimon. Now, what is that added ingredient that was missing in your definition in the action? We have to add to your definition Bernard's element of illegality. Let me explain what Bernard was saying. And what Bernard was saying finds clear expression in Rashi. Rashi on the very Mishnah, which we do not have here. But the Mishnah, let's take a look at the Mishnah. The Mishnah says, Ve'elu hein shematzilin otam b'nafsham. These are those whom we save from sinning. In the English translation, the Blackman translation, he already inserted Rashi into his translation. He had to. It wouldn't make sense otherwise. In other words, we're saving the aggressor not simply from the aggression like John wanted to argue, but because the aggression was an illegal aggression. It was a sinful aggression, like Bernard's formulation. So already in the Blackman translation, but he, of course, got it from Rashi. Now let's understand. What did we say before with Rava? Why did he say the fact that the man who came to ask him whether or not he could kill the other person when the governor came to put a gun to his head, say, kill him also, I'm going to kill you. Whoever says, sorry, can't help you, you have to give up, forfeit your life. Why? Because it was a one-on-one situation. It was a life-to-life situation. And we said in the eyes of the law, all men are equal. So what we need to do is we need to break that equilibrium. How do we break that equilibrium? What does Rashi tell us? The illegality of the action breaks the balance. And so to speak, the blood of the innocent victim is redder than the blood of the guilty aggressor. And the law comes along and says, yes, even though it's a life versus life situation, I am allowed to kill the guilty aggressor, the illegal aggressor, in order to save the innocent victim. And that's the right of self-defense. Killing the illegal aggressor in order to save the innocent victim. 1 second. Why am I not allowed to kill the policeman?
He's not sick because he's got the legal right.
Because there's aggression, but it's a legal aggression. That's exactly the answer. It's a legal aggression. In order to break the balance, you need an illegal aggression. But a policeman is acting lawfully. So you can't claim the right of self-defense. Yes?
When the case for raising,
I'm sorry?
when you have the case of someone who will kill another, but his intention is not to do something illegal, let's imagine he's got a gun, right? Unbeknown to him, he will fire a bullet in the wrong direction and kill the wrong person. So his intention is not something illegal. If anything, it's shady. But surely in those circumstances, you can still kill them even though there's not illegality there.
Fabulous question. Fabulous question. I don't want to get into it now because it takes us astray, but I will tell you the fact that I wrote an entire article based on the principles of tonight. I wrote a second article which deals with your question. What is the line of demarcation? When do we say you've crossed over into the realm of illegality? And when do we still say, no, you're not yet doing anything illegal? With the question being, what is the degree of intention involved? And I'll take you one step further. What do you do with what we call the psychotic aggressor? A guy who's psychotic and is attacking. Can I kill him or not? He certainly has no intention. He's not even in touch with reality. Fascinating question you're raising. You took a baby step. I took the giant step. But the issue that we're discussing is identical. Wonderful question. Thank you. Okay. Now I want to move on and ask you, if the basic principle of the right of self-defense is the illegality, what do we do with minors? What do we do with a 10-year-old kid who attacks you with a jagged bottle and a chain, and he's attacking you? Can I kill him in self-defense?
Yes,
Why?
because it makes no difference that he's a minor.
Where's the illegality?
The chain and the bottle is illegal.
But he's a minor. What's the principle of a minor?
No.
Why are we so lenient with minors?
No understanding.
What?
Well, halachically, no responsibility, but civil, no understanding.
What
But
responsibility?
it depends on now you're playing the age game. But let's take it below the age. Let's say 6-year-old, 7-year-old.
Doesn't understand what he's doing.
What?
He doesn't understand the consequences.
He doesn't understand. So can I kill him in self-defense?
I have no idea.
Okay. sorry?
Are incumbent on.
So can I kill him? But you just said the mitzvahs are not incumbent on him. So therefore I can't kill him. Tough question, right? The Talmud asks this very question. Let's go to source number 5. Amar Rav Huna. Katan harodef nitan latzilo b'nafsho. A minor aggressor, you're allowed to kill him. That's why Rava also, second, third generation. Right. Third generation, fourth generation. Well, remember, Amora ruled. All right. Now I have to give you a little background to this. This question was originally raised not in the Babylonian Talmud, but in the Jerusalem Talmud. By a Talmud, by a student, really a Talmud Chaver, they were also personally very close, Rav Chisda. In the Jerusalem Talmud, Rav Chisda raises the same question. And Rav Chisda says, I don't know the answer. This is a tough question. And there's discussion. He discusses it with his, Rav Chisda discusses it with his student, Rabbi Yirmiyah, and there's a discussion, and they come to no conclusion. What we call Baya de lo ifshita, a question without a resolution. But then, Rav Chisda hears that his teacher, his Rebbe, Rav Huna, in Babylonia, he ruled, as a matter of fact, a minor aggressor, you're allowed to kill him. So Rav Chisda turns to his Rebbe, Rav Huna, and says, hey, I struggled with this. I didn't know what the answer was. And you, so matter-of-factly, ruled, yeah, you can kill the minor aggressor. Esve Rav Chisda le Rav Huna, Rav Chisda, who in the Palestinian Talmud, in the Jerusalem Talmud, left the question unanswered, asks his Rebbe, Rav Huna, Yotza Rosho Eino Gimbo, Lefi she'eino nefesh mitnei nefesh. Now, in order for us to understand the question, we have to turn to source number 6. And then we'll come back to source number 5. Source number 6 is a Mishnah in the Tractate of Orlov. This is the famous Mishnah that deals with the question of abortion. This is the primary source on the entire abortion debate. Now, I'm not going to get into the entire abortion debate because I'm speaking about the right of self-defense. And consequently, for purpose of our discussion, I'm only going to deal with the issue of abortion as it relates to a situation of life and death. I'm not going to get into any of the others of a disformed baby or under other types of circumstances. I'm not going to get into that because it doesn't impact on our discussion of the right of self-defense, obviously. And the Mishnah deals with that type of situation, life and death. Ha'isha shi maksher leilei. A woman who is travailing in birth. Mechatchen es avlad b'mei'eha. They would take a surgical knife and they would dismember the fetus in her womb. Omotzinos oto ever rime, you can take him out limb by limb. Why? Mipnei shechaya kodmin lechaya. Because her life takes precedence over his life. Yatsa rubo, but the majority of the fetus is already birthed. Eino gimbo, you're no longer allowed to touch the fetus. She'en dochen nefesh b'tnei nefesh, because we don't trade off one being for another. That's the ruling of the Mishnah. Before the baby is birthed, you're allowed to abort in order to save the mother. Once the majority of the baby has emerged, even if the mother is going to die, you're not allowed to touch the fetus, because it brings us back to the initial case of trading off one life for another life, and that you're not allowed to do. So now let's go back to source number 5. And Rav Chisda asked his Rebbe Rav Huna, you just said, Rav Huna, that a minor aggressor you're allowed to kill, and that there's a right of self-defense, but the Mishnah just said in Ohalot, by the mother who's giving birth, Yatzar Rosho ein nogen bo lefi she'ein doche nefesh memnei nefesh, that if the majority, the head and shoulders of the baby has emerged, you're not allowed to touch the baby, you can't kill the baby, you can't abort the baby, because we don't trade off one life for another life. V'amai, why not? Rodefu. The fetus is an aggressor. He's endangering the mother. Doesn't the mother have a right of self-defense? And doesn't the doctor have a right of defense of others? If you are right, Rav Huna, my teacher, that even with minor aggressors there's a right of self-defense, then why can't the mother kill the fetus or the doctor kill the fetus, even after its birth? The Gemara answers, or Rav Huna answered to Rav Chisda, Shane Hatam, the Mishamai Korat Falei. Rav Huna answered Rav Chisda that the abortion case is different because it's heaven which is the aggressor, not the fetus, but heaven. What does that mean?
Childbirth is natural.
And therefore,
That is not the baby's fault. It's baby, as far as the baby is concerned.
what do you mean fault? I don't know the term's fault.
Okay, the baby is not doing anything. It's not doing anything.
You're not doing anything what? What was that? A
It's
couple of minutes ago, you used a very, very sophisticated word. What was that word? The baby's not doing anything
Illegal.
illegal. You remember that word?
Well, also the child in the period that the baby was, sorry, the 10-year-old with the machete,
Right.
he's not doing anything illegal either.
Wait, so, okay. Is that your conclusion? Is that what the Gemara is saying?
Sorry, the case of the baby, the Gemara is saying that childbirth is natural.
And therefore,
It's not the action of childbirth.
and therefore it's not illegal. Well, let's just get,
It's not the action of.
let's just get, wait, let's put the child with the machete aside for a
Okay,
moment.
so it's a category error to say that, to ask the question whether the baby is doing something illegal. No, the baby's not doing anything.
Well, let's break it down. Does the baby have criminal intent? Does he have mens rea? No. Do you think he even has criminal actus reus?
No.
Probably not. It's involuntary, right? So he certainly is not doing anything illegal. Okay, so we have the two extremes. We have the extreme, we have the adult, who's the adult aggressor. There's a right of self-defense. Why? Because there's the illegal aggression. At the other extreme, we have the baby, where the Gemara is telling us now it's a natural process. There's clearly no illegality, no criminal intent, no criminal act. Okay, so we're now left with the question, which Rav Huna opened with and Rav Chisda debated, of the 10-year-old kid with a machete. And what did Rav Huna say? That there is a right of self-defense. But he just said the fact that the baby, there is no right of self-defense. So what must you conclude? Yeah.
You can't say,
There is an action. Sorry, with baby there is no action. No intent and no action. The 10-year-old
Go
there is
ahead.
no intent, but there is action.
and therefore what must you conclude?
It's illegal.
It's illegal.
Yeah.
Okay? So what's the difference between a minor and a major?
nothing.
So we know there is.
Intent.
And what, let me formulate it differently. Let me ask it differently. Are the differences between the adult and the minor exhibited?
In the Mishnah, it's
Or in law?
Well, in the Gemara it says that it's the action. If the action is illegal, that's what decides the case.
Right.
And that with the adult, theoretically you can say, excuse me, don't tell me it's illegal. With the child, no, you can't. There's no difference. There's no, you still
So therefore, both of the actions are
illegal.
illegal. And if there's a difference between a major and a minor, it's only in the realm of punishment. We can be more lenient in punishment when it comes to a minor. But in terms of the right of self-defense, I don't care about the punishment. That's the court's business. I'm interested in knowing whether there's a balance of interest. I'm interested in knowing whether or not his action was illegal or not illegal. And the Rambam says that. The Rambam says that a minor who has intent and performs an illegal action, he has performed an avera. He has performed an illegal action. The fact that the Torah is lenient with him when it comes to punishment is because the Torah is merciful. He said, Takala igle, there's a wrongdoing. V'rachmana hu dechasale. And it's the Torah, the Rahmana, the merciful one, that has mercy on this child. So, to summarize, we have the adult, where there's both criminal intent and criminal action. Therefore, his action is illegal. Therefore, there's a right of self-defense. At the other extreme, we have the baby, who has no criminal intent, probably no criminal action. His action is not illegal, and therefore there's no right of self-defense. The middle ground, which belonged to a young child, but had criminal intent and criminal action, his action is illegal. The fact that the court and the Torah may be lenient on him when it comes to punishment is a separate issue for the question of punishment, but it does not impact on the question of rejuvenation, of illegality. Okay. So now I want to move to the final stage of our analysis. We dealt with the first half of the Mishnah. We dealt with the second half of the Mishnah more accurately, where it says, Yatzar rovo eino gimbo she'ein doch nefesh mipnei nefesh. Once the fetus is birthed, we're not allowed to kill the fetus because he's born. And there's no illegality. And you can't trade off one life for another life. What about before the baby is born? Before he's birthed. There the Mishnah says what? You're allowed to abort. Why are you allowed to abort? Why are you allowed to abort prior to the mother birthing?
Because the baby is not counted as alive.
So one possible interpretation, and that's Rashi's interpretation, is because the baby is not a full life. And once again, in the balance of interest, we have the mother, who's a full life. We have the fetus, who's not yet birthed and therefore is not yet a full being. So therefore, the mother's life takes precedence over the fetus's. And therefore, you're allowed to abort. So that would seem rather straightforward. But let's take a look at the Rambam. The Rambam always makes things interesting. And because of our time constraint, let's jump to the end of page 5. The first part of the Rambam, which I'm skipping over, deals with the rules and principles of the right of self-defense. And then the Rambam says, "Leficha charu chachamim." Because of all these rules of the right of self-defense, our rabbis have taught us sha'ubrashi makshel leilei, a pregnant woman who's having difficulty giving birth, mutar lechatecha uba b'me'ah. You can dissect the fetus in her womb, and that up until now was Rabbi Maimonides. Now we have Dr. Maimonides, and he adds, ben basam ben biyad. Whether through medication or through surgical manual methods. That wasn't in the Mishnah. That Dr. Maimonides had it based on his own medical experience, correct? Now what does the Rambam say? Why are you allowed to do it? Not like Rashi said, not like Bernard said, because the life of the fetus is not yet a complete life. The Rambam says that Shehu Kurodef Acharel Argo, because the fetus is like an aggressor who's running after the mother in order to kill her. But once the head comes out, you can no longer touch the fetus, because we don't trade off one life for another life, or one being for another being. And that is the nature of the world. I have to tell you the fact that there have been hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of pages written on this Rambam. How could the fetus be an aggressor? This entire shir was in order to prove to you the fact that in order to have a right of self-defense, in order for one to be considered an aggressor, you need illegality. You need criminal intent and a criminal action. A fetus inside the womb has neither criminal intent, no criminal action, no illegality. How can the Rambam call the fetus an aggressor? What's even more amazing, 2 minutes before the fetus comes out, he's an aggressor. 2 minutes later, once he's birthed, stops being an aggressor, even though the mother's going to die. What happened in those 2 minutes?
Life.
As I said, hundreds and hundreds of pages written on this Rambam. And in the 1800s, there were 3 great scholars who all came up with the same answer, obviously formulated in each one in their own way, but basically the analysis is the same. One is by the Ben-Gershon Agus, the Sidrei Kara. The other, by the way, that's the Radzina Rebbe, the one with the Tchelis, okay, the Sidrei Kara. The second one was Reb Shneir Zalman of Lublin, not to be confused with the Chabad rabbi, Reb Shneir Zalman of Ladi. This is Reb Shneir Zalman of Lublin, the Torah's Chesed. He was connected with Chabad, but he's not the Balatanya. And the third is the famed Reb Chaim Soloveitchik. And in the yeshiva world, they're not going to quote the Hasidim. So they bring the answer that I'm going to present to you in the name of Reb Chaim Soloveitchik, but as I've indicated, Reb Chaim Soloveitchik wasn't alone. And in order for us to understand the answer that these three giants gave, I want to give you a case. And this is a case that's found in the Gemara at the end of Baba Kama. Had a boat, a ferry that was overloaded with people and cargo. And part of the cargo was a donkey. And they're going across the river. The donkey begins to jump up and down. And the people are beginning to fear that the ferry's going to capsize. Along comes one gentleman, takes the donkey, throws the donkey overboard. And everyone applauds, yay, he saved us. And they get back to the shore, and the owner of the donkey comes over to the man who saved, to the hero. He saved this entire ferry, and he says, Yashikoyach, you did a great thing, a tremendous mitzvah. But pay up. Mitzvah is a mitzvah, and business is business. So the owner of the hero says, I'm not paying so quickly. And they go to Rava, the same Rava we saw all along with the governor and everybody, they went to him. And they asked Rava, does the hero have to pay or not? And Rava said, no, the hero doesn't have to pay. Why doesn't the hero have to pay? Because the donkey was a rodent. He was an aggressor. Could the donkey be an aggressor? Does a donkey have criminal intent? The commentaries explain, based on this Gemara and based on the Rambam, that when do we need illegality? We need illegality when the balance of interest is equal. And I need to know, is there a way for me to prefer one set of interests over another set of interests? In that type of situation, I need illegality. It's the illegality which says to me, even though it looks like they're of equal interests, they're not really of equal interests. Because it may be a life for a life, but he's doing something illegal which lowers his interest, and the other one is innocent, which raises his interest. Between the donkey and the people on the ferry, let's put aside the one versus many issue. I don't want to get into that now. Donkey versus a human being. Who's the lower interest and who's the higher interest? The donkey's the lower interest. The human being's the higher interest. Do I need illegality? I don't need illegality. It's obvious who the higher interest is. It's obvious who the lower interest is. And if the lower interest donkey is threatening the higher interest human being, the donkey's an aggressor. I don't need criminal intent. I don't need a criminal action, because inherently he's the lower interest. Now, you'll excuse me, obviously the Rishonim and Achronim did not use modern terminology of higher interest and lower interest, but this is what they're saying. And you check it out, you'll see. Now let's go back to the abortion situation. You know, Rabbi Soloveitchik, Rabbi Soloveitchik and Rabbi Agus and the Torah's Chesed say, you know why fetus is an aggressor? Not because the Rambam disagrees with Rashi, but because he agrees with Rashi. Because he agrees with Rashi that the fetus is not a complete life. But if he's not a complete life, as opposed to the mother, who is a complete life, who's the lower interest and who's the higher interest?
Mother's high.
Mother's the higher interest, and the fetus is the lower interest. If I know who the lower interest is and who's the higher interest, do I need illegality? No. So everything Frimmer said was right. And the reason why the fetus is an aggressor is because the lower interest fetus is threatening the higher interest mother. And what happens once the fetus comes out? Then they're equal. Because the fetus also became a full life. And then you need illegality, and you don't have illegality. Now let's take a look at the Rambam, and let's take a look at the Mishnah inside, and you'll see how magnificent this is in the very wording of the Mishnah itself, and with this will conclude. And this is, and what I'm going to...
What number is it? Sorry.
It's source number 6. This is the emphasis of the Sidrei Kaur, of Rabbi Agus. Hayisha shemakshe leilei, a woman who travails in labor, machakenes avlat b'mei'eha, you can cut the fetus, dismember the fetus in her womb, motzi moto evarim, you can take the fetus out limb by limb. Why? L'mnei shechayav kol limb mechayav. Because his chayim, his life, takes precedent. Because her life takes precedent over his life. Notice the emphasis is on the word life. And why does her life take precedence over his life? Because she is also a being. The fetus may be a life, but it's not a complete life. The fetus is not yet a being. The mother is a complete life. The mother's already a being. So the mother's life takes precedence over the fetus's life. Yatzarubo, but if the majority of the fetus already comes out, ain't no gimbo. You can't touch it. Why? She'ein dochem nefesh mipnei nefesh. There's a switch in terminology from life to nefesh, to being. Because once the fetus comes out, he too is a being. And she's a being. And if it's a being versus a being, you can't trade off one being for another being without illegality. And do we have illegality here? No. We don't have illegality. Ladies and gentlemen, this is the basic keys for the understanding of the right of self-defense in Jewish law. I will tell you, but again, we finished. In many respects, there are major schools of thought within Anglo-American criminal law that have adopted analyses similar to Jewish law. But needless to say, we Jews, we had it first.
Ladies and gentlemen, this is the first of these lectures that Uncle Vivian has missed, and we all miss it this evening. And on behalf of us all, Michael, please convey to your mum our love and good wishes. We've of course also missed Uncle Sam this evening, not only this evening, but daily. As a tower of wisdom and above all common sense, I particularly miss him at this time, when I would so have loved to have asked him his current take on the issues facing the Jewish community and the Labour Party seem to obsess so many. He once referred to communal leadership as eye specialists, and that's got nothing whatsoever to do with sight. So I'm pretty confident that I know just what Uncle Sam would have thought. This evening, Professor Frimmer, you've given us a masterpiece of thought on a very complex and controversial subject. You, Professor, have been erudite in your thoughts and expert in your presentation. On behalf of us all, I thank you, and finally, I wish you all the night in October and a good revenge to you. Thank you.
Sorry?
Okay, we're ending this broadcast now. Do you want to send a greeting to my mum? Thank you. Thank you.